Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome to another Lego Masters live episode recap. I'm your host, Zach Kaplan. Along with me, I have Christian from All Out Brick and Thrawn. And, we haven't done one of these in about 4 weeks. I know 3 weeks ago we tried to do one for the Derby episode. I was out of town at a hotel, and the Wi-Fi was so glitchy. For moments it worked, and then it totally crashed on us, so I said, let's wait. And it looks to me as though, in lining with my traveling I've been doing, they haven't released a new episode in a while. Probably, as I'm assuming, Christian mentioned this, maybe waiting for the Olympics to end. So I'm assuming, I think that's what was taking them a while to put out new episodes. Maybe it was a post-production thing as well. But with the Olympics going on, I think Fox was like, let's hold back because we want hopefully ratings to be a little better. So let's get started. After today's live stream for episode 6, the Derby, we will be going ahead and doing another one immediately afterwards, about 5-10 minutes afterwards, for episode 7. This was the episode from just yesterday, last night, which was the wind turbine episode. But until then, let's get talking about the Derby. First off, I guess just to go over kind of like what we were starting to talk about the last time we attempted live streaming, going over this episode. Essentially, everyone was given a first challenge, which was to recreate. It was like the yellow Ferrari. It was
the Lambo.
Or Lambo. It was the yellow. Sorry,
yeah.
Ferrari's a red. Lambo, and it's basically they gave you like a moment to look at it, and then you had to recreate it. And an interesting first challenge, obviously, to just give someone bonus help going into the actual Derby round. In general, I guess if you want Christian to go over, first off, I guess, introduce yourself, say hello, but also what you thought of just the episode in general and that first challenge.
Yeah, so digging a little bit back here a couple weeks because, like Zach said, the Olympics. But this was a fun challenge. I think that first one too. It like when I initially saw it, it was like I have no idea how they're gonna do something like this because if you know that model, it's a couple thousand pieces large. And while you can maybe pinpoint some of those like larger panels on the outside, just being able to get relatively close, like some of the teams did, was astonishing to me. Just how good some of them did. Like I think it was Caleb and Jacob, if I remember correctly, had the Italian flag in like the proper spot using the proper pieces. And to be able to get some details like that, some teams really shined. And for the ones that didn't, I didn't see it as a huge takeaway. It's like their building skill and building abilities. I was kind of just like, yeah, they might not be able to reverse engineer something after a quick look. But the whole episode itself, I thought was really fun, and we'll obviously dive further into it.
Totally. Thrawn?
Yeah, I thought it was a really cool concept and definitely very challenging if you're not used to either A, the Technic system, or B, the set itself. And also if you don't know anything about Lambos and like their swoop and design and stuff. So yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah,
I think we brought it up the first time we tried to stream, but do you guys think that this set was
SWV audio capture
before this episode was filmed? Like some of the teams could have built this set originally and then got to see it again.
Right. Right. I feel like that could have been a thing. I mean, had the set come out before the casting for this season and before they had them on?
Yeah, I think so. But there's also no way they would have known. And even then, how many of them do you think actually bought it? Like maybe a couple of them, but not all of them, right?
Maybe
so,
Jacob.
Even then, like if you bought it on release, you're not gonna remember. There's no way.
Yeah. Bioscrow says the frame and gear placements is where it got challenging to kind of replicate. I mean, exactly. And just like being able to, from memory, visual memory, be able to kind of replicate it. I think it was Zach and Wayne who actually didn't do too well. They were like, of all the like, because they have a lot of talent, but they actually had a lot of trouble replicating that car.
Right.
But yeah, Caleb and Jacob were the best coming out of that. And overall, just a fun little early competition for them to do. It gave them, 30 seconds before entering the Derby, which, as we found out, did not really help them, unfortunately. But let's go ahead then and get started just with talking about the first one here, which we have Purple Punisher. Now, Purple Punisher was this Zach and Wayne's? Hold up, let me pull it up.
Yes, it was Zach and Wayne's.
Yeah, it was Zach and Wayne's.
So this was Zach and Wayne's, and from you know, from what I could tell, like the color looks good. I think in general it drove okay, but this and I think it was Blue Beast were like kind of almost targeted. I don't know what it was about them, but they took a lot of damage and a lot of hits. I guess first, Christian, you can go ahead. When you saw Purple Punisher roll out, not only its performance in the Derby,
SWP
but
audio
just
capture,
in general,
not registered.
what were your kind of thoughts on Zach and Wade's design?
So I remember them talking about how their goal was structure. They wanted to build this essential solid block, which they did achieve. I mean, thinking back to how they were eliminated from this challenge, it wasn't a failure of the bricks they put around it. They really made a solid structure. They just got stuck on something, which is unfortunate because like just the way that there's not a whole lot of clearance between the bottom of the vehicle and the wheel. So it got stuck. But I think if it weren't for that, they definitely had the strongest build. I think the aesthetics maybe could have been tweaked a little bit more. You know, when you're going for that solid block shape, it's just kind of tiled on the edge. They tried to put the flames there, but I think some other aesthetics things could have been added in, but they definitely had the strongest car.
Totally. Thrawn?
Yeah, I'd agree. I think in terms of strength, they definitely had it. Design, I don't think this was their best. Absolutely not. I think if they maybe paced themselves a little bit better, maybe the way they were trying to build it looked a little bit too complicated. They could have probably made it a little bit more simplistic. And if they did, I think they would have had more time to better think out their design concept. Because I think as it is now, it doesn't look appealing compared to a lot of their other builds.
Totally. I agree.
Which is what needed to happen for them to be able to survive the Derby part. So I can understand their thought process, but I think maybe some better time management probably would have made them do better.
I agree. All right, let's go on to the next one. The next one was Rad Devil. Now, these guys are one of my favorite, if not my favorite teams. I'm kind of rooting for them just because I like their dynamic. And their building sensibilities, especially for a really cool car, came in with this one. I mean, they won. Am I right? This was the
Yes.
they ended up walking away winning, and I think a lot of it was they lasted a while. inside the ring.
SWP audio
But also,
capture, not
just from,
registered.
this kind of old timey car with the engine in front, but that red kind of like sporadically like throughout just really looked. I don't know. It's appealing to the eye, and I think had Caleb and Jacob unfortunately not fallen off like the way they did. I mean, their car was a little similar, and I really liked their design as well. But end of the day, Purple or Rad Devil really did well in the Derby, and then ended up giving them the win for this one. It's overall like a really cool design. I don't know. What do you guys think? Thrawn, what did you think of Rad Devil?
Interesting design. I personally am not a fan of that style of hot rod.
The hot
But in
rod,
terms,
yeah,
the hot rod style, and the devil it seems to me a little too easy. I've seen it before in terms of like car styling. The color choice I think is good. The leaving the wheels exposed and some of the engine detail I thought was really cool. So I'd say for me it's like a good third if I had to choose like just aesthetics. Their driving was good. Their driving was very good. So they did very well with that, which definitely saved them. But that's just my thoughts,
for sure. Christian?
Yeah, I agree with what Thrawn said. It wasn't necessarily the best aesthetic one that we saw. I also really I think the wheels fit perfectly when you look at the different hot rod details that are exposed with the engine. I just think it really all blends together there, but it's not the best aesthetic that we saw. They really were just the best overall, which is why they won, because they had good handling. It was strong enough to survive the amount of punishment, and yeah, it would have been interesting, like you said, Zach, to see if Caleb and Jacob could have gotten a little bit further than they did. What would have happened, because they were a little bit similar.
Oh yeah, I mean 100%. I really like them. Also, they are one of the
SWB audio capture, not registered.
Show, which is kind of crazy to think about. Sweet. All right, let's move on to the next one, and that is Toxic Titan. I like the title. I like the name a lot, and I like that they have the little sporadic kind of toxic goo coming out. That's kind of the theme with this one. The front face too, with the teeth and everything. again, like I really like these. They were definitely in my top favorite of the designs here. So I appreciated it a lot. Also, am I wrong, or was this a 3-wheel car? Wasn't it, or no? It still has 2 wheels on the back?
I don't. I thought it was 4, but
Yeah.
looking at this picture, I'm not so sure. I feel like we would have heard if it was a 3-wheel. It would have been a little bit more.
No, I think just the back wheels are closer together. Is the idea with this design? It could just be the camera angle too. When rewatching this episode, I don't know. I kind of had a newfound appreciation for this card just from design and aesthetics. Gray isn't like the most pleasing color, but given that it's like its name and everything, I definitely think it worked. I don't know, Christian. Overall, what were your thoughts on Toxic Titan?
Yeah, I thought it was a really cool build. Like that was my favorite aesthetic one with the different slime going across. I think they were able to use the Lego pieces, the different slope curves or curved slopes to really make this interesting shape that goes from the back all the way through the front. You have the 2 drivers that are in the car. I don't know how many other teams decide to actually put drivers in their car. They did, so that was a nice little touch.
Yeah.
I think Mark and Steven are definitely really talented builders. I think sometimes they're hit and miss with just how good they're able to pull stuff off, but this is definitely something I'd put up high. They had a couple issues. You can see in the front of their car, it's a little bit sagging down on one side, but they had to kind of take. They just had to compromise, strength for
SWB audio capture
and I
not
think they did
registered.
good overall. Nothing too special.
I hear you. Thrawn, how about you?
This is my favorite one. I absolutely love this one. So for me, just design-wise, is number 1. I like the Halloween-y vibe, the monster car face, the decoration. It's a dark gray car, but they spiced up that color scheme with you have the white for the teeth, you have the red for the eyes, you have the light gray for the studding on the outside that kind of looks like the studding you have on an old chest. The green goo, I think it was skeletons or zombies driving.
Yeah, it's like zombies.
All of that fit together perfectly. The downside was literally the rest of it, is that it was not well built internally. It fell apart super easily. You could see, as Christian said, it's sagging. I don't remember if their driving was memorable in any way, shape, or form. But for me, still, number 1 car was my favorite one.
Totally. Yeah, I agree. I really liked what they did with this design as well. And were they in the top 2 at the end, or no, just because of the performance?
Yes, they were.
Yeah, they were. Anyways, yeah, one of my favorite. Sounds like Thrawn as well agrees. Sounds like we're all pretty much in agreement with Toxic Titan at the end of the day. It was hard. This challenge in general. There's so many external factors, just the driving alone, as we learned with Caleb. But okay, next up is, I think this is the married couple. They did Muscle Sprouts, which is a funny name, right?
That's Susan and Jen.
Or Susan and Jen. Susan and Jen did Muscle Sprouts. And they were the ones that were unfortunately asked to leave, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. But
SWB audio capture
I still
not registered.
I applaud them because I still think they've done a fantastic job in general with all of the challenges and making it as far as they did, But yeah, they were end of the day, not the ultimate greatest. I don't know. What about Thrawn? What did you think about Brussels sprouts? I think they kind of went with this. What is it? It's kind of like a construction.
It's one of those harvesting tractors.
A harvesting tractor.
Good on them for the first place to get this far. Yeah. I didn't think they would, but they did. So congratulations to them for managing to make it this far.
Yeah.
In terms of the design, I think it's a safe bet. A tractor is an easy thing to make. The green was a good color choice. Just the downside is, compared to the others, the devil car, the toxic car, the sunshine car, it feels not as impressive when you compare it to them. I think on its own, it's a great model, but with those other competitions, and also the fact that it broke so easily, the front and back of that model first things to come off, right? Because they're not strong parts, they're not strong sections. But the green is very vibrant, and it does have a lot of personality, but just not enough, sadly.
I hear you, Christian.
Yeah, so I kind of feel similar. I think they definitely overachieved for what I think their skill level was compared to the skill level of the other teams throughout this competition. But this one, I mean, it's just a little plain. The green is definitely makes it stand out, and I think the spikes, they look nice, but like Thrawn said, they fell off almost immediately. And I think what they wanted those to do is turn out to be piercing the other car, so it completely failed their objective. I know with this one, again, they had some time management issues, which for Susan and Jen was a constant throughout this entire competition. It just seems like they couldn't get on a good schedule for building, and if they did, do things turn out wildly different? Maybe, but part of the competition is being able to manage time, and unfortunately there's just too many challenges that they couldn't. If I remember right, those fell off immediately, those front and back sections, and then they kind of hung around for a little bit. But yeah, unfortunately teams got to go home, but I think that when they look back on this, they'll say we made it pretty dang far. And we definitely overachieved expectations.
No, yeah, it was amazing to see how far they went, and it really came down to them and Caleb and Jacob. And at the end of the day, Caleb and Jacob's build was still so awesome that they were able to hold in there and not get disqualified. Yeah, DJ Alistair and Bosco, so yeah, it stood out to the rest of you guys talking about Toxic Titan. Yeah, that it stood out to you guys. It looked awesome. Yeah, 100% agree. That was Toxic Titan is still one of my favorites. But let's move on now and check out the next.
I think another thing for the
go for it.
two ladies. I think there are a lot more statue builders, and that kind of the whole competition is against them because of that, right? It's like you make a statue, you got weeks to make that. You got plenty of time. Structural integrity, non-moving item. This entire competition was not their forte, which is sucks. But good on them anyways. Moving on.
Next, moving on, we go to, now this was the married couple. We go from green to blue, which is Big Blue Beast. Now, as far as the color usage here, I definitely thought it looked like the color was a cool choice. The name makes sense. I like that they went with TNT boxes in the back. But it was funny because during the derby, I don't know if you guys remember, but it's everyone was aimed right at them as well. Everyone was charging at this vehicle. I think it was just the placement, the driving. It was obviously hard to control some of these cars, and I remember the TNT boxes in the back popping out and moving around and stuff. So it's when it came to when they were driving and being hit, it actually made for some really cool effects, the design in general. But they were kind of in the middle tier. They weren't in the bottom. I don't believe that they were in the top at all, right? But they did go, I don't know, not necessarily a hot rod, but kind of a mini pickup truck in a way is kind of what they're going for. This look where they have the engine in the front, in the back it's just carrying these TNT boxes. I still liked it a lot. I think the hood of the car is a little bare. It's not as detailed as some of the other entries that we saw. But in general, I liked this, and I liked seeing everyone just kind of tear it up when they all were out there on the ground floor in the derby. So yeah, that's just generally my thoughts. I don't know. How about you guys, Christian, if you want to go?
I thought this one was definitely middle of the road. A little forgettable, but I think it was a nice, neat design that was quite different from everything else. I thought it was really funny how they had the TNT boxes in the back. I remember when they first proposed the idea, I was like, oh, they're going to go the Mario Kart style, throwing bananas out the back or something, or shells, and try to trip up the other cars. I thought it was funny. Unfortunately, those didn't work.
No.
But it's still a cool concept, and like you said, made a lot of fun for while they were driving it around. And I think that's a big part of this competition too. It wasn't not just about the derby. I think they did in the better half of this out of all the teams in this one, but nothing that made me look back and be like, wow, remember that.
Yeah, I hear you. Thrawn, how about you?
Their build was really
SWB
cute.
audio capture
I like it how it's
not
super
registered.
cartoony.
Yeah,
the
cartoony.
TNT boxes.
Mhm.
I feel I could easily see this in an episode of Wile E. Coyote or something.
Yeah.
You know, so like that aspect I really love. But yeah, I agree that like if you compare it, that's where it loses out, right? As you compare it to the other builds that did much better, it's more boring, more generic. There's not much going on, but in its own little world, I see it and I respect it.
100%. All right, and so next we go from Blue Beast on to number 6, Beware the Bull. I guess in general, it's funny. A lot of people kind of went with this sort of a design, with, you know, engine in front. Was kind of a lot of the like type of cars that a lot of these teams ended up going with, for good or ill. Maybe because they want a lot of that bulk in the front, so when they're ramming into other cars, they're taking less damage and putting on more damage to other cars. With Beware the Bull, I like the kind of, I think it's like flames coming out the top, and it kind of has this, again, almost like a hot rod look to it. Color wise, it was an interesting decision for this color scheme. Not my personal favorite out of a lot of these designs, but when you kind of look at the aesthetic of the flames coming out and like that kind of look that they were going for, I definitely see and understand like where they were coming from and kind of the ideas. But I also think, you know, there were definitely some others that stood out. I like the little eyes. You know, they have like little eyes at the front. It's kind of like its own little character, this bull. But it's kind of, you know, it's brown, so it's not like the most attractive color you could have gone with. But I like the cartoony little aspect of it. I just think when it comes to also the hood,
audio capture,
a
not
little lackluster, and
registered.
the design doesn't look as car-like, and it's a little chonky on the sides. I'm just trying to like critique it as much as I can, but in general, those are my thoughts. I don't know. Thrawn, how about you? What were your general thoughts on Beware the Bull?
This was really boring.
Yeah, a little boring.
I don't know why. Like, I just don't find the like concept of the raging bulls super interesting for this challenge, because I feel like it feels safe.
Yeah.
Even though bulls and cars don't have anything to do with each other, it just feels like a safe concept. Their execution on it, I think, is much better than if a different team had done it. But other than that, it's not super memorable, and this is like the most average build for me.
Totally, I agree. Christian.
Yeah, I'll be quite honest. Until that picture came up, I was like, I don't remember what this was. It was just, and that just happens sometimes. I like the cartoony aspects that come in the front with like that bull, but yeah, it's a little flat on the sides, a little bit like you said, a little chonky on the sides there, and the color scheme. I kind of wonder, like, we see different colors every week. Do they tell them they have to use a certain color every week? I know for 1 week we actually got to see them have to take certain colors, but I imagine that it's pretty constant throughout that they say like, hey, you can choose these color schemes, and you know, because I feel like they would look at this too and be like, yeah, a brown, I don't know.
Yeah,
but
it's like brown colored things don't sell well in general.
Yeah.
Yeah, my final thoughts are pretty much just what everyone said. 100% agree. Let's move on to the next one, shall we? The next one I think I have here is number 7 is, yeah, the Sunshine Wagon.
SWB
How
audio
awesome
capture,
was
not
this
registered.
build? I mean, for me personally, I know people were going for like this hot rod look, and you can see a bits of it, but it's really mostly trying to be like an old school like wagon. I like the kind of intricacies that a lot of this build has. You know, you have the piping, you have some gears, you have the big, you know, tubes around on the sides, and a little bit of chains. You got like just a cool color scheme in general too. You even have the wires on the back holding that little like circle, that sphere. So I don't know, when I saw this at first, I was like, for sure this is like one of my favorites, but I didn't quite know how well it would perform. Not even with the fact of what actually happened, where, you know, it went off, but I thought just looking at it like it was gonna, you know, pieces were gonna start and fall off and chip away just when you look at that. But visually, it's definitely an attractive build. One of my favorite. I think they did like a YouTube video on how they made it as well, just a week or two ago, after the episode came out. He went in and kind of went over it and how he designed it and like how they kind of recreated it themselves from memory, which is probably goes to show you because they did this in the Lambo challenge. They were also very good at recreating from memory. So the fact they were able to do that means just like their idea here was solid, and I think they managed to come off with like a great design. It's just too bad that, as we saw, immediately turn it on. They have 30 seconds extra without any damage, and they go right off. It's like, I get it. You're supposed to be pushing each other off, but I feel like they should have left just like no exits, like in general on this. Like just see the cars beat each other up. The fact that like there was room for a car to just fall off the edge was some team was doomed for failure, and they were positioned right on the opposite side of that
SWB audio capture not
derby,
registered
field. So unfortunately, I just think the design was so good, and it's why they weren't asked to leave and they weren't disqualified, because visually I think actually like I really liked this. So I guess let's first toss it to you, Thrawn, and then Christian. So Sunshine Wagon, for you, how did you like it?
Yeah, F and chat for the boys. That was really upsetting.
Yeah, it was upsetting.
They got juked at that end. Like right as they were about to hit someone moved out of the way and they went off. So that sucks. Design-wise, the only reason I would consider this one my second favorite is because I feel it's very cluttered.
Right.
There's a lot going on. It's hard to be able to look at it and really accept the different parts. They kind of fuse together too easily. This happens a lot with like spaceship builds. When you build a really, really big spaceship, you have a lot going on, but that's because of the scale you're working at, right? Because it's a car, this car feels unnecessarily large because of what is going on it, I feel. You know what I mean? Like, I can see the piping, I can see the crane, I can see the top, but the rest of it kind of gets lost in how much is there, and that's the only reason I put it on my second spot. If they had been a little bit more minimalistic on their designs of like the side details and the front details, it would have easily been number one, but there's just a lot going on.
I agree.
So, yeah.
All right, Christian.
Yeah, so unfortunate, man. What happened? Just tragic. Hopefully they both don't have to take their driver's tests again when they get home, because yeah, straight off the cliff. But like you guys said, it's a really cool design, and as soon as I saw they were in the bottom two, I wrote in my notes like Susan and Jen, losers, like going home. And you can't go home and design this good. I think it kind of gives me like not terribly strong Mad Max vibes, but kind of in that realm. And that's kind of what I was excited for to see in this derby, was something like that. And I feel like they did such a great job designing it, and obviously it ended up paying off in the end. And I think it was cool, like you mentioned, Zach, that they went and showed a YouTube video on this, and then you said that this goes to show that they are very good like building from memory. And I didn't even connect those dots when I first thought of it. It was like, okay, yeah, now it makes sense they were good at the Lamborghini. Like, they made this again from memory, and that was like probably months ago.
Right. Totally. It'd been so long since they built it that they remembered it. Who knows? I'm sure, you're allowed to maybe take a photo of your designs as long as, you sign the NDA, that, hey, after you're out of the show, don't tell anybody who won. You can't, post any of these photos online at first. But as soon as the episode came out, I think it was literally the next day, they posted on YouTube like how they made it and everything. Awesome design. Again, I'm glad that they weren't asked to leave, because they got lucky in the first half and just really unlucky with this, because the build was great. It was just they're still working on the show. If they ever do a derby again, I think they shouldn't really leave an off ramp for like anyone to just fall off of. But
yeah, that was just bizarre.
Cool. And then finally, for number 8, we have Fear the Horn. This was okay. It's a unicorn design, right? That's kind of what they're going for. So I understand that there's not too much going on. I do think like it's a cool color that they went with. Like, obviously it makes sense. This horn with flames coming out. Again, one of these designs like that everyone went with, where the engine is in the front. You know, you have fire coming out of it. You have its headlights, and just a little bit like minimalistic, not too much going on, but in a way that's kind of makes sense. I think
SWB
the
audio
sides
capture
aren't
not
amazing
registered.
to me. I like the back fin though. I like this like that fin aspect with the back. Let me see, like I can like zoom in, but in general, you look at this and there's a lot like they kind of I think left out, and there could have been a little bit more detail. But then again, I think they lasted, if I'm not mistaken, a while in the ring at the end, because I think there's not a lot weighing them down. I forget, did anything fall off? Like, did the horn fall off or something? I don't know. You guys can correct me on that. But in general, not one of my favorite. I think in the aesthetic is there. What they were going for is this unicorn with this giant horn. But at the end of the day, I don't know if what they were really expecting. If like this was gonna like be a weapon that they could use while out in the field or something, but kind of middle of the road for me, you know, as far as the teams that they weren't in the bottom, they weren't in the top two. I don't know. What were your guys' thoughts on Fear the Horn? I guess you can go ahead and start now, Christian. Christian. Ugh. I don't know. Can you not hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, Thrawn, you can go ahead at first. Give us
Okay.
your thoughts.
Yeah. I thought it was okay. Another really boring one. I didn't really care for this one.
Yeah, it looks like a
We've all
cake.
seen, it does kind of look like a cake.
Post no
I think it's really like the colors are fine. It sucks because I don't have much to say about this one because there was nothing super impressive about this one other than the unicorn horn, I guess.
Yeah.
The front was a little interesting. I like the grill section that they did. The engine is kind of unique.
SWB audio capture not registered.
Okay. I guess it's the other one that I would consider like the generic one.
Right. No, 100%. Kind of generic and not enough like looking like a classic car as much as like I get what they were trying to do definitely on the design. And they weren't in the bottom team or the top team. So they've kind of been going. I forget which team made this. Is this the sibling team or
Michelle and Natalie?
Michelle and Natalie did it, right? The girl best friends. Yeah. Yeah. At the end, I think Michelle and Natalie have been able to get through a lot of these and do a good job at like keeping under the radar. I think same with like the siblings too. They kind of like managed to slide through a lot of these. But as we see on the most recent episode, the Win one, which we'll be talking about here in a moment, a lot of teams were put into a new test, definitely. So, again, let's take a look at it. We had Fear the Horn, and we had Sunshine. Now, Sunshine was like probably like my personal favorite, right up there with Toxic Titan. I loved the design. And then also we had, let's pull up Toxic Titan again before we head out. Yeah, Toxic Titan. So let's go ahead and give our like final thoughts, Christian, just on this episode in general, this challenge. Everything that stood out to you and how you felt like how it went.
I thought it was a really fun episode. It was definitely changed up a lot. I mean, we got 2 challenges in one single episode. That was really cool. We also got to see these very interesting builds. Like just different concepts. We had some people going towards like, hey, we want to just obliterate other cars, and we had other teams that were saying we want to make the best looking car. And so it was interesting to see how that dynamic played off, and also how the judges thought about like how much you weighted one or the other, because there really wasn't a perfect vehicle that did both at
SWB audio capture not
so I think that was
registered.
interesting. And I think, like you said, they should refine that derby. I don't see a reason why they should have had a gap like that open, especially like maybe directly across from where Caleb and Jacob started. Like they literally drove straight and it went over. Like maybe make that like a small corner, not like a massive section.
Yeah,
I think would have been a good idea. But I like the episode. I think there was a lot of cool takeaways from it. Yeah,
totally. Thrawn, how about you? Final thoughts?
Yeah, I thought that was a little mean. Other than that, I think it's a really cool concept and very unique, and I'm interested to see how Maybe they'll bring it back, in future seasons if this continues, and how it'll be changed. Maybe they'll put in some cool traps. I'd like to see this kind of like maybe evolve into like a car battle bots. That would be awesome.
It was a little BattleBots-esque, this episode.
Yeah.
But yeah, all right. So 36 minutes, we made it pretty quick, but I think because we knew going into this exactly what we were going to talk about. Again, yeah, great episode, 2 challenges, definitely a couple of problems with the drivability, like not really any time to test how to drive these. Whereas as we see with next week's, the wind challenge episode, they were able to kind of do some testing before going into the final challenge. So if you're watching this now, guys, thanks so much for tuning in. We will literally be going live in like 10 minutes to talk about episode 7. Thrawn, I don't believe you've seen it yet, so you can go ahead and do that on your own accord.
I won't be joining for that one. I got other things I got to do. So
no worries though. But for everyone watching right now, the 8 concurrent viewers, I'll be putting up a scheduled stream again in about 2 minutes, so just hang tight. In about 10, we will be going live again, talking about the Wind Challenge episode. But until then, I'll see you guys in a bit, and thanks for watching this episode of the
SWB audio
Season
captured,
2
not
recap of
registered.
Episode 6, The Derby. See you guys in 10-15 minutes here with the next step.